Hello, people. Well, nobody yet. We'll give people a second here to, no wonder. I guess I'll just hold it up like this. Okay, so I'll just give people a little time, but we're going to talk tonight more about staying organized in nursing school. Starting nursing school is really challenging. You can't, like, when I was in high school, I used to, like, okay, I've got a test, so I'll just study the night before the test, and, you know, I could kind of half pay attention to when things were due and when I needed to do stuff, but that doesn't happen in nursing school at all. You have to really attack nursing school with a plan of action, kind of. You can't just, like, can't just be kind of relaxed about it, I guess. You have to be very organized. And you can't assume that teachers are going to remind you when things are due, remind you when you need to do certain things. You just can't assume that. You have to be on top of your game. You have to have your studying planned out, and you have to figure out all that stuff because there's just such an exorbitant amount of information that you're responsible for knowing. So I want to give you some tips about how a really good way, I think, and I did this, and I know a lot of people that have had some success with approaching it this way. So my first thing that I want you to do is and especially for those of you that are starting in the fall. So, you know, you have syllabus day, and some of you may even get your syllabi before the first day. So after the first day, I want you to just take 1 hour, just 1 hour, and I want you to take all of the syllabi from all the classes and the academic calendar from your school, so whatever school, and if you don't know how to get to your academic calendar, it will be on your school's website, and you can just, you know, Google it, and it's going to only have a few days. It's going to have the stuff, you know, what days you have off, when winter break is, spring break, when all that kind of stuff is. You want to know those dates as well. So get a calendar. I personally liked having a print, like one written down, so I could physically write things down, but I know a lot of people like their phone calendar. But one that you're going to keep with you, like, all the time, one that you're going to take to class every day, and one that you're going to look at every day. So you get on that after the first day of school or after the first day of classes, you'll sit down and you get all of those together and go through each syllabus and write down the due date on this calendar of everything on the syllabus, and do that for each class. And it's going to be a lot of stuff. And I'm not talking just big exams. I'm talking if it says we're going to have a weekly med quiz every Monday, write down a med quiz. These are the dates of the math quizzes, and you write those down. You're going to have a paper due this day. So you want to write every single due date down for everything in that syllabus. And do that for every single class. And that's basically step one. You have to get this framework put down of, this is the expectations of me, is to do these things this semester. So you put everything down, and then after that, you have all of your assignments written down, and on top of that, make sure with your academic calendar you're writing down the days that you have off of school as well. And then also, forgot to say this, make sure you know your work schedule or maybe family commitments, that kind of stuff. Yes, you can't pull it up on NRSNG? Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I have my husband and my sister here. They're going to help me if you guys have questions and stuff at the end, or at any time, just put up questions if you have them, and they're going to let me know what they are so I can make sure I answer them. But, so you want to make sure you put down every single assignment for the whole semester. And I know it sounds like a headache, but it will seriously, this will take 1 hour once each semester, and you will have your mind around what is expected of you. Because when I was in undergrad, I did have a couple of times before I did this where I walk into class and everybody's handing in an assignment, and I'm like, holy crap, I had no idea that this assignment was due. And it was some random assignment that was on the syllabus that I hadn't looked at since day one, and everybody else was kind of aware of it, and I just assumed that professors would remind us when things were due, like they kind of did in high school, but they do not do that in college. It is up to you to remember to turn things in that are even maybe one sentence on the syllabus. So it's really important that you go through that very closely and understand exactly what's expected of you the whole semester. So that is laying kind of the framework, is putting that down. Then what you do is you look at what's due and you try to schedule time to study. The best way really in nursing school to study is not to say, hey, I've got a test on Thursday on whatever, so Wednesday night, I'm just going to study all day and I'm going to study all night and then I'll be good Thursday. No, that is not how you are successful in nursing school. You can't do that. You can't cram that much information in one night and retain it enough to really do successfully on the exams. You really have to break up your studying so you understand it in chunks of time, in very focused, deliberate, most people can only focus for 20, 30 minutes max, then they need a break. Not 4 hours of kind of paying attention to your stuff, and then you're also, kind of pay attention to your stuff, but then also you got Facebook tab open and Instagram flipping through your phone, and I got a funny snap I'm going to do. Like, you want to make sure it is focused attention on what you're doing. I see a question came through. What is the best advice for going through nursing school as a former paramedic? I probably can't speak to that super specifically, but I know other people that have had a lot of medical experience before they go to nursing school, and it's wonderful and it can be very helpful. But the one thing that I've seen that can be kind of a hindrance is, this is how we used to do it in this field or in this whatever, but maybe the nursing scope is very different than a paramedic. So just knowing and being okay with, well, even though maybe that's not that's the way that you did something as maybe a paramedic or maybe a phlebotomist or maybe a I don't know, EMT or something else, that, doing it, you might be expected to do things a little differently as a nurse, but your experience as a former paramedic is going to be amazing as a nurse. It's going to be so helpful. So basically, if you're a former paramedic, get ready to help all your classmates with stuff and be a source of information. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So you want to make sure that that you're scheduling time to study. So I know I have an exam on this day and I'm going to schedule blocks of time to study for this. Best advice to survive med-surg. Okay, I'll get to that. So basically, let's go back to maybe a paper. Okay, so I like to write, in case you haven't noticed. I liked my research papers, and I know a lot of people that would just kind of like wait till the last minute to do their papers, but the best way to approach that is, hey, I've got maybe a research paper due November 15th. Well, 3 months before that, I'm going to schedule one day. All I'm going to do is find 2 sources or find 3 sources, and then I'm not going to think about it for another week. And then the next week I'm going to find the other sources. And then the next week I'm going to write my intro. And then the next week I'm going to write this. I'm going to write my thesis or whatever it's supposed to be. So that you're taking it in chunks of time. When you run into roadblocks, you've got plenty of time to touch base with your professors and plenty of time to sit and hang out and see, hey, can I do this? Does this make sense? This is what I'm thinking. And then you make sure that you have this done and you manage your time well, so that the night, 2 nights, 3 nights before the paper's due, you're not freaking out about it. And two, like when the paper's due like on a Thursday or something, and then people are freaking out about it that week, and then they're asking the professor all these questions about stuff, and if you pretty much already have your paper done, then if the professor says something maybe they didn't say before, and it's like, oh man, I might have done this wrong, then you only have small corrections to make. You're not redoing this whole paper and like freaking out about it. So that's my advice for that. And same thing with exams and stuff. You want to plan when you're going to study in manageable chunks of time, not these like 6-7 hour chunks of time, but hey, I'm going to sit down and focus on this for 1 hour, and then, do 20 minutes, take a 5-minute break, another 20 minutes, 5-minute break, like that kind of stuff that will help you retain the information the best that you can. Because nursing school is not about memorizing and being able to regurgitate that on these like multiple choice questions that it's verbatim. You have to really understand a concept concept and be able to apply that to like questions so you can really field them. So like not memorizing statements about heart failure. What is heart failure and what is the whole pathophysiology of that? Or, you know, what is a stroke and what are the different kinds and what can you expect to see, you know, like that kind of stuff. Not memorizing a sentence about, you know, a hemorrhagic stroke is this. You know, it's really important when you're studying to make sure that you're studying concepts and not memorizing sentences. And then the other thing that was really, oh, I did want to show you guys this. I don't know if I showed you guys this last time, but look. That's me in nursing school. Look how, this is the very first time I put on for realsy scrubs. And the very first time that I had on a stethoscope, and OMG, I was so excited. This was 2008, 2007? I think it was 2008, says John. So, yeah, I was super pumped. Check out that short hair and those bangs, guys. It's not going to happen again. I have really long hair now because I think I traumatized myself with this short haircut. But anyways, and I wanted to show you guys this. This is me in nursing school. Okay, wait. There's me. I don't know if you can see me right there. I can't really point to myself because I don't have enough fingers. But yes, that's my nursing mental health professor in a straitjacket. we went to a mental health, like a museum of a former mental, you know, old school, you know, hospital, and they had all this stuff, and she tried on a straitjacket. So that's that. That was 2009. Anyways, I brought those out because I wanted to show everybody that because I thought they were really entertaining. But so you want to make sure, back to the concepts, that you're understanding the concept as a whole, and what do you need to do and how do you learn best understanding those concepts. So for me, this is the way that this was kind of my routine. Go to class. I would maybe print out the PowerPoint, and I don't know what y'all are still doing, if y'all are still doing PowerPoints and stuff, but I hate PowerPoints. Did my sister just make fun of me for saying the word y'all?
Yes, I did.
I think she just did. Nikki lives in Chicago, and they don't appreciate, she lives in Chicago, they don't appreciate the amazingness of the word y'all. You can use it, like, I don't know. It's just this wonderful word. And yeah, so, are you at Iowa Wesleyan? Thank God they've changed the scrubs. I had a purple polo and that vest. And it looked ridiculous on me, and it looked even more ridiculous on the guys in my class. Sorry, guys.
NRSNG is trying to make fun of it too. Yeah.
I was born in 1987, thanks though, but I went to nursing school in rural Iowa, so I don't know if that made a difference. But no, not hating on rural Iowa by any means. Gosh, now I want to know what their scrubs look like now. And when did they change them? And if it was shortly after I left, I've got a bone to pick with somebody at Iowa Wesleyan. No, I'm just kidding. But so this was my routine. I'd sit in class and I would have one notebook. Actually, I had one of those thicker 5-star notebooks that was like a 5 subject. I'd have that just for my nursing school. Like this semester of nursing school was one of those. And then each section was a class. Then I'd have a folder for each class. And then I would sit and write out notes in class, old school, you know. I wouldn't type them in class. I would hand write them in class. Then I would go to my dorm and to study, I would type them up. So that means I'm reading over them, going through them again. And then if I had, retyped something from the PowerPoint, and then that was, study session number 1. And then I would kind of read my text that went along with it and try to make notes to add with it. And then I would add that in there as well. And then I would go back through my notes again for a 3rd time and then highlight and add more notes. And then that was kind of like my routine. So I was going over the material multiple times, going through the reading multiple times, picking out what I thought was important. And that was kind of how I went through things. So that was how I retained stuff, and making sure, and I didn't do as good of a job as I did. I didn't do a great job of this when I was in school, kind of retrospect now. It's just that really, working hard and working smart. You want to make sure that you're... Y'all there? Sorry. It just did a little weird thing. Okay, so I would, I recommend highly like focusing intently, really a lot, no distraction, nothing else, 20, 30 minutes, reward yourself with a short break. Another 20, 30 minutes, reward yourself with a short break. And those, if you do that for 2 hours, that's going to be way more valuable than staring at that book for 6 hours. It is really important that you figure out what is the best way for you to learn and retain the information, as opposed to just trying to read everything and just trying to get through everything and just or putting your head down and I'm just going to study hard. Like, you've got to study smart. That is a really important aspect of nursing. There is such an exorbitant amount of information that you really can't just sit down and study it like some other stuff, if that makes sense. You really have to be strategic in how you are going to make yourself retain the information. So you really got to go over it, got to figure out the big stuff and understanding the big concepts, the bigger concepts, and then the sub-concepts of those before to really maximize and do the best you can on each exam, because a lot of those aren't copy-paste questions that you can just learn like these verbatim things. So that was really important. And what else was there? I think that was my points. I have a Word document pulled up that had my notes on it. I just want to make sure I touched on everything, because I went through that kind of fast. I see some notes here that I think I can go through. I did not go to nursing school in 1987.
Not really conceptualize, organize notes and resources by concept, not source.
Yeah. Oh, so another thing too is, I don't know about a lot of you guys with nursing school, but so I would have my textbook for the course. Then I have ATI. Then I had another couple sources to look at. Not UTI, John. ATI. You said, man, that's some personal information. No, I did not have UTI, ATI. And so, it's like you're looking at all these places for all this information. So, I would make sure to read. I always use heart failure as an example. I don't know why. I was going to read a heart failure part of my actual textbook, and then I would go over and read the heart failure part of ATI so that I could see multiple areas, because the ATI was a lot more abbreviated, so I could really see what was the really important stuff. So I could see the important stuff. If I needed more information, I could go back to the text and pick out the more explanations, because those textbooks have so much information in them, and it's not realistic for you to really retain all that for an exam. They give you so much detail so they can explain absolutely everything, but not all of that is really necessary. I mean, a decent amount of it's fluff, and you've got to kind of sift through the fluff to see what's important. So, that's why sitting and, taking your notes in class so you know what's important, know what they're going to really harp on, as opposed to like going way into detail into things that they're going into detail so you really understand, but it might not necessarily be super relevant, if that makes sense. And then what was the last point on there? It said conceptualize.
Right, organize notes and resources by concept. It talks about the cardiac module.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry about that.
Future understanding for you.
Oh, and then if you are strategic in the way that you organize your notes, like the way that I would do, so I would have these typed out notes, and most of the time finals in nursing school are comprehensive. They're not off of they're off of the whole semester. They're not off of that last, section. They're all pretty much comprehensive. So you got to go back, and you got to go back to the beginning of the semester. And if you weren't taking decent notes, and you weren't, you can't read your own handwriting, or it's hard to refer to that stuff. And so it's like, it's really challenging. So if you have taken good notes and typed them and have those readily available, so when you're studying for your finals, you've got your own study guide. It's done. You don't need to go back and redo anything, and you're just studying as opposed to creating. So that can be really, really helpful too. And when I was talking, I just remembered something, but I don't think okay. So that's basically the gist. Actually, I can see all the questions on here. Best time to study, evening, depends on you. do best right now. If I had to go to nursing school right now, I would probably do best studying for a few hours early morning, and then before bed. Like for some reason, like the afternoon, I'm like checked out. But I don't know if I can really speak to that because it's so personal. Some people are great and focus well at night, and some people focus well in the morning. I noticed that I focus the best, write the best, just do the best work within the first 2 hours of waking up, which kind of sucks. So my plan of attack is to get the coffee set up the night before so the alarm goes off, and then my coffee is made, and then I can just grab my coffee and then maximize those first 2 hours. And here's a tip for those of you that work in the morning. This is what I just started doing recently, and it's been amazing. I stopped checking my email, or I started checking my email at like 10 or 11 in the morning as opposed to first thing, because then I'm totally distracted. So if I have something to do in the morning, I make sure I make my to-do list the night before, and then I don't check my email until like 10 or 11 so that I give myself time to get that to-do list done. So you could think the night before when you're going to bed, okay, I want to make sure I study this and this, or I get through this page, or I get to do this or whatever. And then I don't check my email, I don't check my social media, I don't do that kind of stuff until I have devoted the best focused time that I have of the day to that. It's crazy how much more I get done and how much more productive I am when I do that, as opposed to answering email first thing and then responding to the email responses that I get from those, and then I'm starting my day behind, which kind of sucks. So that's my advice for that. Let's just see. I see this one about AP, but I want to looks like people are already answering those questions. Wonderful. Any tips on how to take notes from the textbooks? I feel like a lot of nursing school is resource management as well. You're given all these resources, whether it's the PowerPoint, then it's your teacher going through the PowerPoint, then adding their own little whatever, and then it's also I also had ATI, and I don't know if you guys had that as well, as another source, and then another textbook. So for some exams, I was looking at a lot of sources to kind of pull out what I thought might be the most important. So I definitely in class would pay attention to what the teachers seemed to be emphasizing the most and what seemed to be kind of the big picture kind of things. So that was something that I would do and use that to kind of dictate things from my text, because the med-surg book that everybody gets, that's literally that thick, it explains absolutely everything, but you don't really necessarily need to know everything in such detail. So, bigger concepts, things that, there's 17 pages on this. What are the highlights of this that are really important to know? And if you kind of look at your PowerPoint and your notes that you're getting from class and compare the two and see where those are focused, then you can kind of pick out what you need to focus on in the text, if that makes sense.
Any advice for not confusing things in
Farm. No, I'm just kidding. So actually, I as you know, I do like course instruction for NRSNG.com, and I just I didn't have this in nursing school, but I went through the med master course that NRSNG has, and they actually created most of that before I started working with them. But I was working through it and basically went through the entire thing, and OMG, I wish I had that in school. The guy that does the course is a pharmacist, and he explains classes of medications so well. And I think it's really I think the best thing with pharm, and there is a degree of memorization in pharm, but if you can understand the mechanisms of action, that is really, really helpful why this works this way. And I'm a nurse that works in neuro. I have a very focused, work with a very specific set of meds, and I was going through that med master course, and he was blowing me away with the way that he was explaining things that made so much sense. So I was going through it, and I watched his demo about ACE inhibitors and the renin aldosterone angiotensin system, and my father-in-law is on an ACE inhibitor, and I was like, this is so great, like a great explanation. I had my father-in-law watch the ACE inhibitor video to show him how his medication works, and his like mind was mind blown. Okay, so we're blocking the ACE enzyme at this aspect so it doesn't turn from angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. It was just really cool. So I think it's the key in pharm is to understand the mechanisms of action and to understand why and how and the pathophysiology, and then kind of work your way down to the memorization aspect of it. So I think it's really important in pharm, and I cannot recommend that MedMaster course enough. I feel like I would have done a lot better in pharmacology in college if I would have had that as a resource. Yeah.
Have you used Kaplan?
Yes, I did use Kaplan when I graduated, and I did really, at that point, liked that. That was what I did back in 2010. But, everybody, it was pretty expensive, and it kind of depends on what you struggle with. Do you struggle with test taking skills? Do you struggle with, you need some content? They have a very specific decision tree thing that doesn't always work for everybody, and it is also extremely expensive. So I did that, but I also did that a long time ago. So I don't know if I can really accurately speak to what they do now, and if I can say, hey, this is the best thing. I've tried out a bunch of different stuff. NRSNG, I'm just saying we might have something awesome coming around the bend. I don't know if I can say that or not, but pay attention. Next question.
This is a good one. Do you have a calendar of when you will be doing live events and what the subject matter is? I tend to find these by accident, and I would like to share with all my fellow nursing students.
Yeah, so every Wednesday, this is what NRSNG is doing that I really love. I was kind of doing this kind of randomly on my personal Facebook, but the NRSNG we're doing every Wednesday at this time. So 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to probably try to figure out specific topics way ahead of time and let you guys know. But just count on every Wednesday, 8 p.m., that we're someone, whether it's me, Heather, Susan, or John, we're going to be chatting about something nursing related, mainly for nursing students, or, that's usually what the focus is something to help nursing students. So every Wednesday, and then, what else was I going to say? Yeah, I think that's basically it. Every Wednesday at 8 or 9. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. I'm pretty sure, because I've looked at them, after this airs, John gets it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, for NRSNG. I think these mostly go on our YouTube channel, and I think they're also on this Facebook, like the archived videos, so you can go look at them. So I do want to encourage people to be here live, because then we can ask questions and interact. But then if you couldn't catch it, not the end of the world. You can just check out, the views later. So, anybody else?
Tips on how to survive med-surg?
Oh, med-surg. I could talk for like 3 hours on that. I don't know. Be organized, be intentional with how you study. That's going to be the big things, are being intentional with how you study, being organized, trying really hard to apply what you're learning in clinicals, as much that you can find in clinicals that you can apply, ask questions of your clinical instructors, and really try to make the text come alive, because it is kind of hard if you haven't seen some of this stuff for it to really make sense. But it isn't, like I was saying, that's one of those classes where there's just a crazy amount of information, so it can be really overwhelming to kind of make sense in your mind. We at NRSNG, we have a med-surg review course that kind of hits the highlights and puts it in like digestible pieces that I think are great. I just went through that course, and again, another thing I wish I had, but it's tough, so don't feel like, oh, if I don't get this right away, it's really, I'm not going to be a good nurse. It's just a really big, difficult course and kind of a beast, but it's very necessary. So yeah, that's my med-surg one. Anything?
Studying for a cumulative final, Is it even possible?
It is. But yeah, I felt like a lot of nursing school was, let me just get through this next test. Let me just get through this next test. I'm just going to memorize and do whatever I can to get through this test to test to test. And then you get to the finals and like, holy crap, I don't remember what we studied in the beginning. But if you're taking good notes and you're staying organized and you're not, and you know, if you need to find your notes from first semester or the beginning of the semester, you're organized enough where you could do that and you're not spending half the day looking for all your old notes. You know, you pull up those notes that you went over 3, 4, 5 times earlier in the semester and you take a look at them, it starts to come back. And then you can, when you went through that, oh, and this is something I did want to say, after you have your exam on throughout this semester, you know, if there was something that you didn't anticipate was a really important aspect of it, and then you got to the test and all your questions were on blank and you didn't expect that, make note of that so that when you get to that cumulative final, when you get to the NCLEX, when you get to those kind of things that you can say, this was I didn't think this was a big deal when I was studying for it, but it was. So I need to make sure that I can go back and focus on that, maybe fill in some of the holes. And yeah, I tried to get through the test and I didn't maybe understand that at that time. And I'm pressed for time. I got to get to the next one and I'm not going to try and like read stuff I'm not going to get tested on yet. But if you make note to go back on that, you know, at the end of the semester, when you have that cumulative final, you can fill in those holes and it might make more sense since you've had a lot more content since.
Tips on what to expect for your first clinical.
Someone to pass out. One of y'all always passes out that first clinical. I'm telling you. First clinical, it's nerve-wracking. It's a little scary, especially if you have never been in a clinical environment before. I think, No, I didn't pass out. In my book, I talk about my first thing I did in clinical. It might involve me and an elderly man and a condom catheter. I won't talk about it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that decides to read it. But just be ready for anything. You know, it's really important with your first clinical. You want to make a good impression. You know, arrive 10 minutes early. Look professional. Look like you care. Look like it matters to you. You want to volunteer to do stuff and be part of it. But you want to, you don't want to be like overly like, with your clinical instructor. You want to give everybody else, a chance to do everything or do as much as possible and be kind of a team player. But ask good questions, get involved. It is nerve-wracking. It is scary. You're these nursing students the first time with all these other nurses that are doing this, and they're super busy and they've got a lot to do. And as much as you can, just jump in and get involved and try and talk to patients. Don't be scared of it's hard at the beginning not to be scared of patients, I got to be honest, but the more you interact with them, the easier it gets. And before you know it, you'll be walking in the room like talking to them like no big deal. So it is nerve-wracking, but that's okay. Everybody feels like that. Just do what you can to calm down, to get the most you can out of it. Dear God, eat something. Even if you're so hungry, you're so nervous, you can't eat, you're not hungry, you better eat something or your butt is going to be passing out and you're going to feel so embarrassed, even though we don't care because we see it all the time and we don't care. But you're going to feel embarrassed and then you're going to think about that all semester. So just make sure you eat something, especially if you're going to watch someone start an IV and you've never done that before. Can't tell you how many students I've seen pass out. Next. Any more? All right. All right.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Thank you guys for hanging out. All of you pre-nursing students working on your prereqs, and all of you nursing students, just anything that we can do over at NRSNG to help you, or if you're having questions, comments, concerns, need some support. Hey, nursing school's tough. Even getting your prereqs done is tough, but it's rewarding. It's well worth it. And just hang in there. There is an end in sight, I promise. And we are here to help you get through. And I just saw one. Nursing shoes. Okay, nursing shoes. Let me tell you, you got to have good nursing shoes. And I wasted a lot of money trying to figure out which ones were the best for me. And for me, it was Dansko's. And it originally was like the regular old Dansko's. They have this new line called Work Wonders, and they're shorter, and they're a little snugger, and they're $40 cheaper. They're $100. I love these things. Dansko Work Wonders, check them out. But you want to try them on, check them out first. I don't know if that's going to be the best thing for everybody, but you can wipe blood and urine and everything off of them if they get on there. Totally grossed out John and my sister. Totally did. But check them out. Try them on. They're my current favorite shoes right now. Yeah. All right, guys. I want y'all to have a wonderful evening. Hannah, Mac, Tosh, Nikki, and John, they all say hello. And have a great night, guys.